Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice.
Welcome to another episode of On the Bright Line podcast. Again, we're going to be doing it via Zoom, and we're missing Bonny. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, Bonny's got some personal stuff going on with her mom. She talked about that in our last episode. And so, it is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and do this one without her. But she is with us here in spirit for sure. So Robin and I are going to talk. We decided that we were going to talk about something that's a little more Robin centric today. So we're going to talk about, not that I don't, not that you just know more about this than I do. I guess it's a better way for me to say it. We're going to talk about meditation, but maybe like going deeper with meditation and maybe some techniques that we can add to our EAP or use in times of stress. So like times of stress, what can you do in those moments? We've talked about EAPs, emergency action plans for those that haven't listened to that episode, or know anything about Brightline Eating. Right. Emergency action plans, things that you're going to do in the moment when you're having a crisis or a stress that may make you want to go off plan or, maybe do some risky behavior or anything like that. But maybe there's some other things that we're going to talk about today, things that we can just do to better align our minds in that moment and maybe bring us back to a space of reality. Is that a good way to talk about it?
Yeah, that is a good way to talk about it. And I think, right. So the science behind any kind of relaxation or visualization is that, we're going through life, stress happens, our stress level goes up. And from the time we can stop having those anxiety producing thoughts, it takes 20 to 30 minutes for us to come back down to baseline for the adrenaline and cortisol to leave our system. So the idea of an EAP is coming up with what are some things, some techniques, some practices, some distractions that we can utilize to help us kind of come back down to baseline. And I love coming up with things that you can do anywhere because, I don't know about you, but sometimes I am out in public and I can't, maybe reach for my knitting or, watch my happy little TV show or video that, soothes me and distracts me.
And it seems that the stress a lot of times happens when we're not at home. Like, let's be honest,
right.
Like when we're in a situation that we have less control over. So, this is a good thing to think about for sure.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I had thought of was just the simplest thing is it's called color breathing.
Yeah, I know nothing about this.
Right. So
it sounds cool, but I know nothing about it.
Right. So I'm a little bit of an artist, so I love things that are visual.
Wait, let's stop. She's a lot of an artist, people. Like, she does fused glass, and it's beautiful. So I'm just going to put that out there just in case, we actually haven't talked about this at all on the podcast yet, Robin, that she is an artist. We're all artistic in our own ways, but that is the way in which Robin is artistic. So,
yeah. So the idea behind color breathing is if I was going to breathe in, Meagan, if I asked you, what is a relaxing color? What color would you name?
Yellow.
Okay. So if you were going to breathe in relaxation, right, you could visualize breathing in the color yellow. And if you think of a stressful color, what color would your exhale be that you were releasing?
Red.
I love it, right? So that idea of that you're going to
initial thought, first thing that came to my mind.
right. So that idea that you would visualize breathing in yellow, which is such a beautiful, happy color, right? And then on the exhale, you're going to visualize yourself blowing out red.
Okay.
Right. So again, it's super simple. You can do it anywhere. No one is going to know that you're doing this. So if you're, I don't know, sitting in a doctor's waiting room, right? Or you're in the grocery store going down an aisle with a lot of NMF, and you need to do some relaxation, a little self-soothing. That's a really easy thing that you can do in the moment to kind of ground yourself a little bit.
Yeah. And that's to me, it's right in line with, I do meditation, I do a timed meditation every day. And I just find even, it's so funny because sometimes I can even talk about the meditation and I'll start breathing, I'll start doing the deeper breathing, just even talking about the meditation. So to me, it's I think I think the color is a really, it's a good technique, obviously, for visualization, but just the act of the breathing, just to slow down. And one of the things that we talk about, in BLE, and Susan talks about, is the pause, practicing the pause and finding the pause, the space in between whatever the thing you're reacting to and what your reaction is, and making that as long as right, and how do you lengthen that time? How do you give yourself time to ground yourself or come back to reality or whatever that is? And so I think that this is a great way to practice the pause, is color breathing. So I really like that.
I always joke about the 3-second tape delay, right? If I could have a 3-second tape delay from having a thought and maybe having something come.
You mean what they do to edit stuff on TV? Is that what you mean? So they say you don't so the cuss words don't get out on live TV.
Yes. Bleep out the bad words, right?
That's
but
funny.
if there could just be a 3-second tape delay between a thought and maybe something coming out of my mouth, that would be great. So that practicing that pause.
Yes. Yeah. And lengthening it. I think that's the thing, is that there's always going to be some amount of time between, irritant and reaction, or whatever you want to call those things. But how do we lengthen that so that gives us the time to really think through what our reaction is going to be and how we're going to choose to react? So
I have a lot of clients say that they almost feel pressured to respond quickly, right? That they, someone's asked me a question, and so I have to respond.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that we'll come up with to kind of go, okay, but what could come out of your mouth to maybe indicate to the other person you're thinking? And sometimes I'll say, that's a really good question. Let me think about that for a minute, because I want to give you a well thought out response.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Well, and I think too is let's bring this back to BLE and the food and all that kind of stuff. It's someone's offering you something that is not on plan. And in that moment, you feel pressured to say something immediately, right? You're what do I say? Do I say yes? Do I say no? What's going to happen in that moment? And I think, I don't know if you could say, let me think about that, or what you could do in that moment, but it's how do you, give yourself time to gauge your reaction, and think about something and not feel the pressure to have an instant knee-jerk response.
Or to say yes because you're stuck in people pleasing and someone has just offered you something and you're having these thoughts about that. And we're going to do another episode on kind of the cognitive behavioral therapy piece of that. So we can address that more in a future episode.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
The next thing that I was thinking about is something called progressive muscle relaxation. And the beauty is you can, if you want to learn more about that, you can certainly Google it. The idea is really simple. And again, it's something that you can do anywhere. It's great if you're also struggling to fall asleep and you're trying to relax, right? Because when we're falling asleep, I don't know about you, but I'm laying there and it's dark and all of a sudden my brain's like, hey, remember that thing you said today? Let's focus on that.
I mean, even worse. Remember that thing you said when you were 9 years old that was so embarrassing?
Right. Remember in third grade
That's
when
right.
you did that thing? Right. Yeah. So the basics of progressive muscle relaxation, I like to start with my feet, right? And it's basically that you're going to tense and hold for 3 and then relax for 3. And then you're going to tense and hold for 3 and relax for, right? So you're going to do that process 3 times. And the idea is that you're just trying to get in tune with where is there tension in your body. And so when you tense something and then you relax it, you're really starting to feel and notice those muscles, right? So you're going to go through every little muscle group as you're kind of progressing up your body. Right. Okay. So we're going to start with our feet, go to our calves and go up our thighs. And again, we're really trying to search out that muscle tension and we're seeking that out. And if you're noticing an area is really tense, you can stay on that area for a little bit longer, right? And again, starting to, kind of pair that with some breathing and really slowing things down, right? This is not a fast process. This is a slow process. And I periodically forget how helpful progressive muscle relaxation is to help me fall asleep. And I'll be struggling to sleep and I'll go, duh, you tell other people to do this all day long. Why don't you give it a try? And I can rarely make it through my whole body
before your sleep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
And again, the beauty is you can do it wherever you are. You can do it sitting, in a waiting room somewhere and no one's going to know that you're doing that.
Yeah. Probably not standing up. You might not want to do it standing up.
You could.
You could, but we would hate for people to fall over.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. That's lovely. I think that's probably a good, you can do that while meditating too. I mean, I know that there's lots of guided meditations that go through, the body and talking about relaxing each. I've never heard of the clench and release though. I haven't heard that before, but I can completely understand why that works. And I'm going to try that tonight when I'm falling asleep. I guarantee.
It's really not. I think on one of my favorite apps for meditation or guided imagery is Insight Timer. And I like it because it's free. And I think they've got a few different ones on progressive muscle relaxation. Yeah. I know some people do better if they have someone to kind of guide them through it. Right. Mm-hmm. Other people do better doing it on their own. So, whichever flavor you prefer, you can use that.
And people ask me all the time, like what I use for meditation. And I will tell you, when I started meditating, I did guided meditation. I had somebody's voice telling me to breathe in, breathe out, that sort of thing. And Insight Timer is the app that I use too. And I completely am, I'm on board with it as well, because it is free and you can pay for it if you want some of the bells and whistles, but you get a lot in the free version. So there's no need to pay for it. And, like, Robin was saying, like you can find these different kinds of guided meditations. Like I just now use a timer because that's where I'm at. Like I just want to, I just want to do the mind clearing, like, relaxation without any, sometimes I'll use like an ambient noise, but most of the time it's just, just a timer. But there's tons and tons and tons of guided meditations in that app and you can search it and find it. So I would, obviously we're both recommending that. So. Oh, okay. And then I think there was one more.
Yeah, we were going to talk a little bit about like a visualization, right? So, Meagan, if I asked you, where is the most relaxing place that you can imagine? Like the mountains, the beach?
Either. Let's say the mountains, because people know I'm a hiker. So like,
Right.
I think like being someplace like totally alone next to an alpine lake where it's quiet and all you can hear is like birds.
Right.
That's probably the most relaxing.
And you just hit a lot of points, right? So the idea behind a really good visualization is you want to hit as many of the senses as possible, right? So you named that you would be by yourself, you would be out in the woods, right? And so if I asked you, what would you hear out in the woods? What are some things that you would hear out there?
I said, hear the birds normally. You know, sometimes if there was running water, like if there was a stream, like I would hear that. You know, the breeze through the trees. Like I'm trying to think of what else I would hear.
Yeah, you might hear, you know, the sound of, you know, maybe some underbrush, you know, crunching as you walked along.
Yes.
You'd hear the wind in the trees. You'd hear the leaves. You'd hear some water. You'd hear some birds, right? And so, if I asked you what you would see, what are maybe some different things that you would see that would be out there in the woods when you're hiking?
Well, definitely, you know, like I said, I would want to be next to an alpine lake, so I would see the water, the mountains, the blue sky, you know, the beautiful green trees. Now I really want to go hike, Robin.
Right.
It's dark. I'm not going to go hike right now.
Going hiking in your mind. We're going hiking in your mind.
Yeah.
So if I asked you, what would you smell when you're out on a hike?
The wet leaves, like that's a very distinct smell that I can think about, like that wetness. We live in the Pacific Northwest, guys, so it's always wet here.
It's always damp.
I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, just that, you know, the evergreen smell, because that's the predominant, you know, tree in the area. I'm sure everyone can, you know, hearken that in their mind, that evergreen smell. I mean, if there's water, definitely just that, you know, almost like that mossy smell. Yeah. Yep.
What would you feel? What would you be able to feel if you were out there hiking?
I mean, I feel like the breeze, like I feel the breeze across my face. I definitely, you know, underneath my feet, I can feel the, you know, the leaves and the crunchy and all that as I hike along. You know, before I was talking about the moss, like the trees here normally have good moss cover on them. So, you know, like just you can run your hand across that. I think about that.
Oh yeah, that soft, squishy moss, right?
Yes.
You might also feel, depending on the day, you might feel like some sunshine on your face, or
not very often here, but yeah,
not very often, right? Depends on the day.
I kid. We do get sun here.
But the cool thing about a visualization is it gets to be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to craft this warm, sunny day where you're going to feel some sunshine, or you can imagine yourself putting your fingers down in that cool stream and feeling that. Like you said, feeling the moss or the lichen, or feeling, you know, what a cold rock might feel like. Right. So the idea of that, wherever your visualization is, that you get to create where you're going in that visualization, and taking the time to kind of immerse yourself and all of your senses in what you would be aware of in that space. Right. And so the beauty is it can change. Right. One day you might say, oh, well, you know what? I'm gonna think about seeing some little yellow flowers in the grass, and what those little yellow flowers might feel like. Or maybe there's a squirrel, or I'm gonna see a deer in the woods, and I get to watch this beautiful deer cross my path and encounter that beautiful creature on that, right? Or maybe one day you decide, I'm going to go to the beach today. Today I want to be at the beach, right? What's going to be, at the beach that I'm going to encounter that's a little different? Maybe you want there to be someone with you, or maybe you just want to feel like a comforting presence, right? Maybe there's not a person with you, but you're feeling some sort of comforting presence there with you, wherever it is that you are. But the beauty of it is that it gets to be completely individual. It gets to be wherever you want to go. And you get to choose how long you stay there or don't stay there, right? And so just like a meditation, you can go to that space, right? Starting off with, I'm going to find a comfortable position. Maybe I'm going to close my eyes. Maybe I don't want to close my eyes. Maybe I'm going to, I'm going to stop and pause and take a few breaths, right? And kind of bring myself down to that space of relaxation. And then I'm going to slowly imagine myself leaving that space of relaxation. Once I'm done, I'm going to visualize myself coming out, right? Maybe that means you visualize your hike ending and you're getting back to the trailhead and, getting to your car and taking your shoes off. And you allow yourself a little bit of time to come out of that visualization. But again, it can last as short a time or as long a time. Again, it's great if you're trying to relax and fall asleep. It kind of gives that little monkey mind part of our brain a little something to latch onto and to think about as we're trying to, maybe relax and fall asleep a little bit. And again, you can do it wherever you are.
Yeah. And the point is, right? I mean, like, what's the point? Like, why are we talking about these techniques? Like, why do we care about this? So I think that the point is that we live in a world of stress. Like, let's be honest.
Yep.
We live in a world of stress, and that, we are living a lifestyle, if you're eating BLE, even if you're not eating BLE and you're trying to, do something different, you're living a lifestyle that might be outside of the norm. And so therefore, sometimes when people encounter that, there's a little bit of resistance or whatever the case might be. And so you might be in a situation where you just need to have a pause, or you're, in a place that's filled with NMS or NMD, and you need to center yourself to reestablish that resolve to stay on plan or to follow through. So, Robin, is there any other good advice or thoughts that you have around these techniques and meditation in general?
The number one thing would be practice them when you aren't stressed, right? Because
we say that about the EAP too. You got to practice the EAP. Even when you don't need it, you got to practice it so you know how to do it,
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get into a stressful situation and go, well, that didn't work. It's like, okay, but you hadn't fleshed out your plan. So I would say, maybe in a notes program on your phone, jot down some ideas for yourself about, my relaxation place, my visualization would involve, the forest and what's going to be there and what am I going to, see, hear, smell, touch, because that idea of having it fleshed out a little bit allows it to be easier for you to access it in a stressful moment.
Right. Well, and meditation is also a good time to practice. Like, I will say that, like, if you meditate, if you do a daily meditation practice, all of these things can be used during, meditation to practice that. Like, and like I said, for me, I think that's what meditation has brought into my life is that it's given me this tool of the pause, and granted, my meditation is longer than what I would probably pause in any situation, but it's just given me this tool that I realize the difference in in my countenance before and after meditation, right? And so for me, it's like, I know that if I take the time to just stop and breathe and think, that I will feel better on the other side, right? Like it won't be as reactionary as I had been in the past. And I've actually had people in my work tell me that I've calmed down after doing this. I mean, I've been doing this for, over half a year now, and they've, people have said that there's a marked difference in my reaction to things. So, there's a testimony right there to meditation.
And here's why it works. And here's why it's important to do it on a daily experience, as opposed to just when you're stressed, right? So if my normal response to something is, oh my gosh, be stressed, be freaked out, right? I've built a neural superhighway to that mind state in my brain.
Right.
Relaxation and the practice of meditation or any sort of relaxation practice teaches your brain, oh, well, we could go here instead, right? The more you go there, the more you start building that road, right? And at first it's a 1-lane dirt road, and now it's going to be a 2-lane road, right? So the more we practice it, the faster and the easier we can go to that state. And they've done studies that have found that people that have a regular meditation practice, when they're having surgeries, need less pain medication and less anesthesia.
Well, I hope I don't have to experience that anytime soon, but
right. but it's that idea that
that's cool.
It really does create change in our brain, in our bodies. It's not just this thing that's, woo-woo and maybe feels good in the moment. It really does create change, just like people at your work are noticing. They're like, you're different.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because I was really resistant against meditation. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast or not. I know I've talked about it in general. I just don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast. I was super resistant to meditation for a long time. And I really can't even tell you why. I mean, I think there was some element of oh, this is just woo woo, hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, whatever.
Right.
But, I realized that a lot of successful people meditate. And that's part of their life. And I'm like, man, if that is part of people's lives, or who are successful doing, not just financially successful, but successful in BLE or successful in other things that they do, it's why am I not implementing something like that, or at least trying to implement something in my life like that in my life? And like I said, I mean, we've talked about this before, the resistance to thinking that you have to go to nirvana or something like that. That's not what my meditation practice is about at all. My meditation practice is about, I don't even necessarily clear my mind, because I normally read something before I start meditating that I focus on when I meditate. So I think that you can make it whatever you want. And if you're a spiritual person, you can talk to your higher power, or, if you, like I said, if, you can read something, and focus on that during meditation. You can do one of these visualization exercises while you meditate. I think it's just a good practice, I'm definitely a person who is now sold on meditation and the practice of it. So for sure.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments about meditation? Or
I would just say, be willing to give it a whirl, right? Yeah. Just like you are saying, it's not something that you had a lot of buy-in to initially. But I love that you were able to go, you know what, there's a lot of people that do this and say it works. So who am I to poo-poo that until I actually give it a try, right? Yeah. And it's that idea of really giving it a try. And that doesn't mean, well, I did it when I was really stressed and it didn't work for me. Yeah. Of course it didn't, right? That's waving the bottle of Tylenol underneath your nose or
trying to pick up a 50-pound weight for the first time. Let's talk about it like that. I mean, It's it is a muscle you have to strengthen. Yep. And I will say this, talking about a 50-pound weight, when I started meditating for 2 minutes. Right. I did not, and I do a 10-minute meditation now. So it's not even I'm doing an hour-long meditation at this point. But I started really small because I was sitting still for 10 minutes sounds like nuts. And now I can do it and it's not a big deal. But I'm just saying, like, you know, when I started small and I worked my way up, and it is a muscle. It is a muscle you have to, strengthen and flex. So for sure.
There we go.
Well, that is our episode for today. Bonny, we're sending all of our love and good thoughts your way. And we know we'll all be back together very soon, and hopefully in the same place, because I'd like to actually see your faces in person.
I know.
In the future. Anyway, thank you guys so much. As always, if you have any ideas for the show or questions for us, you can get a hold of us at onthebrightlinepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our social media. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.